Did you receive a letter from the SSA? Or are you worried one might be coming? Because right now in 2026, the Social Security Administration is sending debt collection notices to hundreds of thousands of retirees across the country. The amount they're demanding back? In many cases, $10,000 or more. And here is what makes this even worse. In most cases, the overpayment was caused by the SSA's own administrative errors, not by anything you did wrong, but they still want every dollar back. And if you don't respond within 90 days, they will automatically withhold 50% of your monthly benefit. No phone call, no warning, just half your check gone. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly who is at risk, what your legal rights are, and the precise steps to protect your check before it's too late. Let's start with the basics, because the term clawback sounds complicated, but the concept is simple and important. As Social Security clawback happens, when the SSA determines that you were paid more than you were entitled to receive at any point in the past. It could be from last year, it could be from 5 years ago. In some cases, people are receiving bills for overpayments that happened more than a decade ago. When that happens, the SSA sends you what's called an overpayment notice. This letter tells you the amount they believe you owe, and it starts a clock. Here is what most people don't know. You have approximately 90 days from that notice to respond. If you do nothing, if you set that letter aside, if you don't understand it, if it gets lost in a pile of mail, the SSA will automatically begin withholding 50% of your monthly SSDI benefit, your retirement check, your disability check, cut in half, automatically. That means the money you depend on to pay your rent, your groceries, your medication, cut in half while this process plays out. Now you might be thinking, this probably only affects a small number of people. Let me give you the real numbers. Between fiscal years 2020 and 2023 alone, the SSA issued an estimated $32.8 billion in overpayments. That breaks down to approximately $13.57 billion in SSDI overpayments, retirement and disability, and $19.24 billion in SSI overpayments. As of the most recent Inspector General reports, approximately $23 billion of that total remains uncollected. In fiscal year 2023 alone, the SSA collected about $4.9 billion, but waived only $267 million. The rest is still being pursued. That is not a small administrative error. That is a systemic crisis, and the people caught in the middle of it are retirees who in most cases did nothing wrong. In fact, the SSA's own Inspector General reports show that the majority of these overpayments were caused by the SSA's own administrative errors or delayed processing, not by beneficiary fraud. Let me repeat that. Most of these debts exist because of mistakes the government made, and yet the government is collecting them from you. To understand why this is coming to a head in 2026, we need to look at what happened inside the SSA over the last 2 years. By the end of fiscal year 2022, congressional funding cuts had already brought SSA staffing to a 25-year low. Then, in early 2025, thousands more experienced employees were cut in the largest staffing reduction in the agency's history, bringing the total workforce from 57,000 down to just over 52,000. Here is what that number means in practice. According to the American Federation of Government Employees, one SSA worker is now responsible for serving approximately 1,180 beneficiaries. That is 3 times the workload of 1967. Between 2010 and 2023, the agency's customer service budget dropped by 17% after inflation. During that same period, the number of beneficiaries grew by 22%, approximately 12 million more people depending on the system. The result? Phone wait times doubled. Regional offices were reduced, local offices restricted in-person service, and the backlog of pending cases, which stood at 1.2 million in mid-2024, still has hundreds of thousands of cases unresolved today. Martin O'Malley, former SSA commissioner, publicly warned that the agency was being pushed toward a system collapse. The current commissioner has committed to improvements, but the pressure on this system is real, and it is the direct reason why overpayment letters are going out faster than they can be resolved. So who is most at risk of receiving one of these letters? Pay attention here, because this list may include you or someone you care about. Number 1. Retirees who worked part-time after claiming Social Security before reaching full retirement age. The SSA strictly enforces the annual earnings test, deducting $1 for every $2 earned over the limit. If your earnings exceeded that threshold in any year, even by a small amount, you may have been overpaid. Number 2. SSI recipients who had changes in income, living arrangements, or household composition that were not reported immediately. The SSA's own data shows 51% of SSI overpayments come from unreported earnings or income changes. Number 3. SSDI disability beneficiaries who return to work, even temporarily, without notifying the SSA. This accounts for 36% of OASDI overpayments. Number 4. Widows and surviving spouses who switched between their own benefit and a survivor benefit at the wrong time. A situation where the rules are genuinely confusing and errors are extremely common. Number 5. Anyone who received COVID-19 stimulus payments that were incorrectly counted by the SSA as income or resources. Number 6, and this one surprises most people, family members. If the SSA cannot recover the debt directly from the primary beneficiary, it can now pursue recovery from a spouse or child who receives benefits on that same record. And number 7, non-citizen beneficiaries who did not report living outside the United States for more than 6 consecutive months. The SSA is actively enforcing this rule in 2026. The rules around how aggressively the SSA can collect these debts have changed dramatically in a short period, and understanding this timeline explains exactly why 2026 is a critical year. Before 2024, the SSA's default was to withhold 100% of your monthly benefit until the debt was repaid. Your entire check gone. In March 2024, that was reduced to 10%, acknowledging that taking everything caused severe hardship for the most vulnerable beneficiaries. In March 2025, the administration reversed that policy and attempted to return to 100% withholding for new overpayments. Then, following significant public and political pressure, an emergency policy was issued in April 2025, effective April 25th, setting the new default withholding rate at 50% for OASDI benefits. SSI withholding remains capped at 10%. And here is the critical detail. If you do not respond to your overpayment notice within approximately 90 days by filing an appeal, a waiver request, or a repayment negotiation, that 50% withholding begins automatically. Even at 50%, advocates and legal experts warn that losing half of a fixed monthly income makes it impossible for many retirees to simultaneously afford food, housing, heat, and medication. If you receive an overpayment notice, here are the 3 specific forms that could protect you, and the deadlines you cannot miss. Form SSA 561, Request for Reconsideration. Use this if you believe the debt is wrong. Either the amount is incorrect, or you don't owe it at all. This must be filed within 60 days of receiving your notice, plus 5 days for mailing. The moment you file this form, SSA collection must stop while your appeal is reviewed. The SSA is legally required to provide you with a clear, specific explanation of how the overpayment was calculated. Courts have ruled that a vague explanation is not acceptable. Form SSA 632, Request for Waiver of Overpayment Recovery. This is your request for the debt to be forgiven entirely. To qualify, you must demonstrate two things. First, that the overpayment was not your fault. Second, that repaying it would cause genuine financial hardship, meaning you cannot afford basic necessities. For debts of $2,000 or less, a threshold that was recently increased from $1,000, you can request this waiver quickly over the phone by calling 1-800-772-213 without filling out the full 10-page form. Collection stops while your waiver is being processed. Form SSA 634, Request for Change in Overpayment Recovery Rate. This is your negotiation tool. If you agree you owe the money but cannot afford 50% withholding, this form lets you request a lower monthly repayment, starting as low as $10 per month. New rules introduced in 2025 also allow for extended repayment periods to better accommodate your financial situation. This form is especially important in 2026, given the new 50% default rate. The waiver process requires you to prove you were not at fault. Here is exactly what that means in practice and what documents you need. The SSA considers you not at fault if you reported changes accurately and on time, if you reasonably relied on incorrect information provided by the SSA itself, or if a physical or cognitive condition, including age-related factors, affected your ability to understand the reporting requirements. Documents that strengthen your case: any copies of forms you previously submitted to the SSA reporting income or life changes. Any written correspondence between you and the agency, letters, notices, responses. Records of phone calls including dates and times you contacted them. Medical records if a health condition affected your ability to manage your benefits. And written statements from family members or caregivers who can attest to your circumstances and your efforts to comply. One of the most powerful strategies recommended by legal advocates before filing your waiver: request your own complete file from the SSA. This lets you see exactly what information they have on record and whether they ignored a report you already submitted. In some cases, the SSA had the correct information and simply failed to process it. That is your strongest argument. There is one more development in 2026 that most people and most channels are not talking about, and it changes the stakes significantly. Effective March 3, 2025, a new federal rule authorizes the SSA to use electronic payroll data exchanges, real-time information from employers and payroll providers, to identify income changes as they happen, rather than months or years later. In theory, this is good news. It means overpayments should be caught earlier, before they grow to tens of thousands of dollars. But here is the reality in 2026. The system is still being implemented. The backlog of old debts that were allowed to grow for years under the old manual system, still exists. Those letters are still going out, and the people receiving them are being held to a 90-day clock and a 50% withholding rate, regardless of when the original error occurred. The new technology will help future beneficiaries. But if you are receiving a letter today for an overpayment from 2021 or 2022, the new system does not protect you. Knowing your rights does. Whether or not you have received a letter, here are 4 steps to take right now. Step 1. Log into your My Social Security account at ssa.gov. Verify that your banking information, address, and contact details are current and correct. An outdated address means letters go undelivered, and your 90-day window starts from the date the letter was sent, not the date you received it. Step 2. Review your earnings history inside your ssa.gov account. If you worked part-time after claiming Social Security before full retirement age, confirm that your reported earnings stayed within the annual limit for each of those years. Step 3. If you have any open case with the SSA, a pending application, a name change, a survivor benefit request, an unresolved appeal. Follow up now. Do not wait. Every delay compounds in the current environment. Step 4. If you receive any letter from the SSA requesting information or documentation, respond immediately. Do not set it aside. In 2026, with staffing at historic lows and a new system still stabilizing, unanswered requests take significantly longer to resolve than they did 2 years ago. And the 90-day clock does not pause while you decide what to do. Here is the bottom line. The SSA overpayment crisis is not going away in 2026. The agency is under pressure to recover billions of dollars. Staffing remains stretched. And the debts being collected today, many of them caused by the government's own errors, are landing on retirees who have no margin for a 50% cut to their monthly income. That does not mean you are helpless. You have the right to appeal. You have the right to request forgiveness. You have the right to negotiate a payment you can actually afford. But every one of those rights has a deadline, and the clock starts the moment that envelope reaches your mailbox. If this video gave you information you didn't have before, please share it. Not for me. For the people in your life who depend on that check every single month and have no idea this letter could be coming. And if you want to stay ahead of every Social Security, Medicare, and IRS change that affects your benefit, explained clearly, without panic and without politics, subscribe, because that is exactly what this channel is here for.